The wind moves softly across the Heartland ranch, carrying memories that never seem to fade. It's been years since Ty Borden took his final ride. Yet his presence still lingers in the horses that gallop across the golden fields, in Amy's quiet strength, and in the hearts of every fan who still believes that true love never truly says goodbye. Now, whispers are growing louder. That season 19 might finally bring something fans have long prayed for, the return of Graham Wardle, and with it, the sunrise of Ty and Amy's love story once more. There are love stories that feel written in the stars. And then there are those that are carved into the land, into every mountain, river, and sunrise. Amy and Ty's story was one of them. It began not with fireworks or grand gestures, but with something deeper, understanding. Ty came to Heartland as a troubled young man, carrying more pain than he cared to admit. Amy, still healing from her own loss, saw something in him that no one else did, a soul worth saving. Together, they began a quiet journey that changed both their lives forever. Their love was never loud or rushed. It grew like the ranch itself, steady, honest, and full of heart. There were moments of laughter, of arguments, and of long rides under the wide Alberta sky. They faced storms, heartbreak, and uncertainty, but every time life tried to pull them apart, they found their way back to each other. Ty became more than just a worker at Heartland. He became family. To Jack, he was the son he never had. To Amy, he was the other half of her heart. As the seasons passed, fans watched Ty and Amy's bond deepen. From young love to marriage, and finally to becoming parents, their journey felt real, not just a story on screen, but a reflection of love's truest form, patient, imperfect, and lasting. Viewers connected to them because they saw themselves in their struggles, the fear of losing someone, the joy of finding your place in the world, and the hope that love can endure anything. Then came the moment no one was ready for. When Ty's life came to an end, it felt like time stood still in Heartland. The air grew heavy, the colors faded, and Amy's quiet tears echoed the grief of millions watching around the world. For many, it wasn't just the loss of a character. It was the loss of a part of Heartland's soul. But what makes this love story unforgettable isn't just how it began, or even how it ended. It's what it left behind. Every smile Amy gives, every horse she heals, every sunrise she stands beneath, Ty is there. Not in body, but in spirit. And that's why the thought of Graham Wardle's return doesn't just excite fans. It feels right. Because Heartland was always about healing, second chances, and the belief that love, real love, never dies. The fields of Heartland have seen heartbreak before, but they've also seen rebirth. And as season 19 draws nearer, a single question rises with the dawn. Could this be the moment when Ty's story finds its sunrise once again? When Ty Borden took his final breath, something shifted in Heartland. It wasn't just another storyline ending. It was as if the land itself went silent for a while. The ranch, once full of laughter and familiar footsteps, felt emptier. The camera would pan across the wide Alberta fields, and though the sun still rose over the hills, it somehow didn't shine the same way. For years, Heartland had been built around the bond between Amy and Ty, a partnership that balanced strength with tenderness, hope with heartbreak. Without Ty, everything seemed to lose its rhythm, like a song missing its melody. Amy's journey after his death was quiet but deeply human. There were no dramatic breakdowns, no shouting at the sky, just the slow, heavy weight of learning how to live again when the world feels half empty. She had to wake up each morning, feed the horses, tend to the ranch, raise her daughter, and still find a reason to smile. Every corner of Heartland carried a memory. The barn where Ty used to work, the fence they built together, even the trails they rode on, everything whispered his name. It wasn't just Amy who felt it. Viewers did too. The silence after Ty's departure echoed through every episode. Heartland has always been about healing, but for the first time, healing felt impossible. Amy was still the same woman, but she was no longer the same person. Her story became one of quiet endurance, of trying to find light in a world that had gone dim. Fans could see it in her eyes, in the pauses before she spoke, in the way she looked at the horizon as if waiting for someone who would never return. And that's what made it so real. Because grief doesn't always come with tears. Sometimes it just lingers, like a shadow that never leaves your side. As seasons moved forward, Heartland began to rebuild itself. But the absence of Ty was always there, unspoken, but never forgotten. The other characters grew, the stories expanded, new faces arrived, yet somehow every storyline felt like it was written in the space Ty left behind. Even the new relationships and challenges seemed to circle around that single truth, that some people leave, but they never really go away. The fans, too, couldn't let go. Across social media, messages poured in, stories from viewers who had lost someone they loved, who found comfort in Amy's quiet strength. Ty's absence connected people not through what was said, but through what was felt. It reminded everyone that love, once planted, continues to grow even after loss. Heartland became more than a show. It became a mirror for millions facing their own goodbyes. And then something beautiful began to happen. Amy's pain slowly started to change shape. It didn't vanish, it softened. She began to smile again, not because the hurt was gone, but because she had learned how to carry it. Her daughter became her anchor, the ranch her purpose, and her memories of Ty her guiding light. There were scenes where Amy would look up at the sky, a soft breeze brushing her face, and for a moment, it felt like Ty was still there, not as a ghost, but as a feeling, a heartbeat, a memory that lived on in everything around her. This transformation was quiet but powerful. Heartland without Ty wasn't empty. It was different, like a wound that turns into a scar. You still feel it, but it becomes a part of you. Amy's story showed that healing isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering with peace. It's about living in a way that honors the love that once was. So, when whispers of Graham Wardle's possible return began to surface, it struck a chord. It wasn't just excitement, it was longing. Fans didn't want Ty back because they couldn't move on. They wanted him back because his presence was the heart of Heartland itself. His absence had shaped the story, and his return, in any form, could complete it. Maybe not to undo the past, but to give it meaning, because sometimes, in life and in stories, love doesn't end, it transforms. Ty may have ridden off into the sunset, but his shadow still dances across the fields of Heartland. And maybe, just maybe, season 19 will bring him home again, not as a man returning from the dead, but as the love that never truly left. It began quietly, almost like the first whisper of dawn. A few fans noticed something, a subtle change, a spark of curiosity that spread across the Heartland community like wildfire. It wasn't an official announcement, no dramatic reveal or teaser trailer, just fragments. A comment here, a cryptic quote there. And soon, the whispers turned into questions that no one could ignore. Could Graham Wardle, the man who brought Ty Borden to life, be returning to Heartland? The thought alone sent a wave of excitement through fans who had never truly stopped believing. Over the years, Graham had stepped away from acting, exploring his personal journey and spiritual growth through his podcast and independent projects. He often spoke about moving on, about closing the chapter of Ty's story. Yet, every time he mentioned Heartland, there was something in his tone, a warmth, a deep gratitude, and sometimes, just sometimes, a hint of nostalgia that made people wonder. In one interview, Graham said, "Ty's story isn't just about endings, it's about what continues after." That single sentence was enough to set the fandom ablaze. Online forums filled with speculation, fan edits resurfaced, and theories began to take shape. Some believed Ty might return in a dream sequence, guiding Amy through a new challenge. Others imagined a series of flashbacks that would reveal unseen parts of their journey together. A few dared to hope for something even bigger, a physical return. Perhaps in a miraculous twist the writers had kept secret all along. Meanwhile, Heartland's official social media pages began posting subtle throwbacks, old clips of Amy and Ty, classic love scenes, nostalgic quotes. Maybe it was coincidence, or maybe it wasn't, but the timing couldn't have been more perfect. The posts came just as filming for season 19 began, and fans couldn't help but connect the dots. Why post Ty now? They asked. Why bring back those moments? The show's creators, known for their secrecy, stayed silent, and that silence spoke volumes. Even the cast seemed to play along. Amber Marshall, who plays Amy Fleming, shared a behind-the-scenes photo with the caption, "Some memories never fade." It wasn't much, but for the Heartland faithful, it was everything. The image of her standing against a golden sky, her hair blowing in the breeze, reminded everyone of the way she used to look at Ty. In the comments, fans flooded the post with messages like, "Is this a hint?" and "Please tell us Ty is coming back." Then came the moment that truly set hearts racing, a brief video clip that appeared online, showing a shadowy figure walking near the Heartland barn. The lighting was dim, the camera slightly unfocused, but fans swore it looked like Graham Wardle. The clip spread across YouTube, TikTok, and fan pages within hours, sparking a storm of excitement and debate. Was it real? A stand-in? A clever edit? Nobody knew for sure, but hope had already taken root behind all the speculation. One truth remained clear. The connection between Graham Wardle and Heartland had never been fully severed. Though he stepped away, he often spoke about how the show and its fans changed his life. He once mentioned that he still receives letters, messages, and even drawings from viewers who found comfort in Ty's story, people who faced loss and learned to heal through his character. That kind of bond doesn't simply disappear. It lingers, much like Ty's spirit in the show itself. The beauty of these rumors isn't just in the possibility of his return, but in what it means. Heartland has always been a story about resilience and second chances. The thought of Ty returning, even briefly, feels symbolic. It's not about rewriting the past, but honoring it. It's about giving Amy and the audience one more sunrise with the man who helped shape her destiny. And maybe that's why these whispers feel different this time. They're not built on empty hope, they're grounded in love. The same love that has carried this series for nearly 2 decades. Whether it's through a flashback, a dream, or a heartfelt message from beyond, Ty's return would mean more than just nostalgia. It would be a reminder that love stories like his and Amy's don't end when life changes. They simply take on new forms. So as fans eagerly await season 19. Every teaser, every word from the cast, every sunrise over those familiar Heartland hills feels charged with possibility. Maybe it's nothing, or maybe it's everything. Maybe, just maybe, the winds of Heartland are shifting again. And they're carrying a name we all know by heart. Ty Borden. Sometimes, truth doesn't arrive in headlines or announcements. It comes quietly, wrapped inside a few heartfelt words. When fans began whispering about his possible return, Graham Wardle didn't rush to confirm or deny. Instead, he spoke the way he always has, gently, thoughtfully, as if every word carried the weight of meaning. For those who listened closely, what he said wasn't just an answer. It was a reflection of his soul, and maybe, just maybe, a soft promise that Ty Borden's story wasn't truly over. Over the years, Graham has often talked about his decision to leave Heartland. He explained that it wasn't out of frustration or fatigue, but out of a deep need to grow, both as an artist and as a human being. In one podcast episode, he said, "Sometimes you have to step away from something beautiful so you can understand what it truly means to you." That line lingered in the minds of fans. It didn't sound like goodbye. It sounded like a pause, like someone walking away to take a breath, knowing they might one day find their way back. When asked about Heartland, Graham never spoke in the past tense. He didn't say that was my time or that chapter is closed. Instead, he often used words like journey, growth, and transformation. He spoke about Ty as if the character still lived within him, as a lesson, as a friend, as a part of his own evolution. To the people who had followed his work for years, it was clear that Heartland was still a part of his heart. And while he made peace with moving forward, he also left the door slightly open. In a recent interview, Graham reflected on the letters he still receives from fans around the world, people who share how Ty's story helped them through grief, loss, and healing. He said, "It humbles me. It reminds me that stories don't end when the cameras stop rolling. They keep living inside people." That one statement felt like a bridge between fiction and reality. Because for millions of viewers, Ty Borden wasn't just a character. He was a symbol of love that survives even the hardest storms. What made his words so powerful was their honesty. Graham didn't make promises. He didn't tease appearances or fan theories. But his tone, soft, warm, and deeply grateful, said everything fans needed to hear. It carried the same sincerity that made Ty so beloved. And perhaps, in his own quiet way, Graham was letting people know that he hadn't forgotten the world that gave him so much, or the people who still hold onto it. Then came a moment that made hearts skip a beat. During one of his podcast lessons, when talking about closure and moving on, he paused, a long, thoughtful silence. Then he said, "Sometimes the stories we leave behind find their way back to us. Maybe not the way we expect, but in the way we need." That single sentence reignited the spark of hope. It wasn't confirmation, but it was enough. Fans interpreted it as a clue, a poetic way of saying that maybe Ty's presence could return, even if only in memory. Vision or spirit. Behind his calm tone, there's something deeply human in Graham's reflections. He's not just an actor looking back on an old role. He's a man who understands the power of storytelling, the kind that connects those across time and space. His journey beyond Heartland, the writing, the podcasting, the exploration of self seems to mirror Ty's own path, seeking peace, searching for meaning, learning to let go, but never truly forgetting where he came from. And maybe that's why his words feel so alive. He once said, "If something is meant to return to your life, it will. But it won't come back the same. It'll come back wiser." Could this be what's happening now? Could Graham's return, if it happens, be less about stepping into Ty's old boots and more about revisiting his spirit in a new light? A version of Ty that appears in dreams, in flashbacks, or even as the quiet voice that guides Amy forward. It's a thought that fits perfectly within Heartland's message, that love doesn't disappear. It transforms. For the fans who have waited, Graham's humility has only deepened their admiration. He hasn't tried to reclaim fame or stir hype. He's simply spoken from the heart, and in doing so, kept the magic alive. His connection to Heartland remains timeless, like a melody that keeps playing in the background. Even when the song has changed, that's so when he talks about the beauty of endings and how they often lead to new beginnings. It's hard not to imagine him standing on the familiar Heartland ranch once more, not as a returning actor, but as a storyteller coming home. Maybe season 19 won't bring back Ty Borden in flesh and blood. Maybe his return will be quieter, in Amy's dreams, in a letter she finds, or in a moment when the wind whispers his name across the open fields, because sometimes the greatest returns aren't about what you see, they're about what you feel. And in every word Graham Wardle has shared, fans can still feel Ty's heartbeat echoing through the world of Heartland, not gone. Just waiting for his sunrise. The beauty of Heartland has always been that it never tells us love is perfect. It tells us love is patient, resilient, and everlasting. When Ty Borden left this world, many believed Amy's story had reached its twilight. But in truth, it was only the beginning of a different kind of love. One that exists beyond sight and sound. As season 19 approaches, the question isn't just whether Ty will return, but how his love will continue to shape the lives he left behind. Because even when someone is gone, their story still breathes through the people who remember them. Amy has spent years walking the fine line between holding on and letting go. She has raised her daughter with the same kindness and strength that Ty once showed her. Every lesson she teaches, every horse she heals, carries the quiet rhythm of his influence. And yet, there's an emptiness that even time can't fill, not because she hasn't moved forward, but because some bonds aren't meant to fade. The future of Amy and Ty's story, then, isn't about rewriting the past. It's about rediscovering what love means when it outlives loss. If Graham Wardle returns in season 19, whether as high in memory, dream, or spiritual form, it won't just be a nostalgic moment for fans. It will be a full-circle revelation. It will remind Amy and us all that love doesn't end when life changes course. It simply shifts shape. Ty's presence could reappear in the quiet moments, the hush before sunrise, the soft glow of the barn lights, or the echo of his laughter in Lindy's smile. Perhaps Amy will find herself talking to him, not as a ghost, but as a presence that has always guided her from afar. Imagine an episode where Amy stands in the early morning light, watching the horses run free. The wind brushes her hair, and for a moment, she feels him there not as a figure beside her, but as a warmth in her chest, a peace that tells her she's exactly where she needs to be. That's the kind of storytelling Heartland has always mastered, not about fantasy or miracles, but about faith in the unseen. And in Season 19, Ty's return could symbolize something deeper, the idea that love is not bound by life or death, but by memory and meaning. The show has never shied away from exploring emotional truth. In its quietest moments, it's often said the loudest things. So if Ty's presence returns, it will likely not be with grand fanfare or sudden reappearance. It will be settled in Amy's dreams, in her daughter's words, in a photograph found at the perfect moment. Maybe Amy will face a new challenge that reminds her of the man who once taught her to trust her instincts. Maybe she'll look up at the sky and whisper, "I wish you could see this, Ty," and feel that familiar calm wash over her, as if he's answering, "I already do." And if Graham Wardle does step back onto the Heartland set, even for a single scene, it will be more than a cameo. It will be a reunion between two souls who built something timeless. Fans don't just want Ty back for nostalgia. They want him back because his presence completes the emotional balance of the story. Amy's healing is powerful, but Ty's spirit gives it purpose. Together, they remind us that love stories aren't defined by their endings, but by how they continue to live on in us. The writers of Heartland have an opportunity to craft something profoundly moving, not by reversing Ty's fate, but by weaving him into the fabric of the present. His return could come as a message of hope, a dream that guides Amy through uncertainty, a moment that helps her forgive herself for moving on, or a sign that reminds her that letting go doesn't mean forgetting. Ty could return not as a man, but as the embodiment of what Heartland has always stood for: compassion, courage, and connection. For the fans who have journeyed with Amy and Ty from their first meeting to their last goodbye, this next chapter feels like a sunrise after a long night. Not blinding or loud, but soft and golden, the kind of light that touches everything it falls on. Season 19 could be the moment where Amy finally finds peace, where Ty's story isn't one of tragedy, but of transcendence. A story that says even when love loses its form, it never loses its power. Because maybe the truth is this: Ty never really left. He lives in every choice Amy makes, every step Lindy takes, every dawn that breaks over the Heartland Ranch. His return, in whatever way it unfolds, isn't just about bringing a character back. It's about reminding us all that love, when it's real, doesn't fade. It transforms, it guides, it heals. So, as the sun rises on Season 19, fans wait with hope in their hearts and tears in their eyes. Not for a resurrection, but for a reunion. For one more moment when Amy looks toward the horizon and the world feels whole again. Because in that light, somewhere between memory and eternity, Ty Borden rides beside her once more.